Hello, everyone, and welcome to the State of the Army. I'm Sam Scove, and I'm the Army reporter for Defense One. I'm very excited to be joined today by General Randy George, Chief of Staff of the Army. General George, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me, Sam.
I want to start off with the news of the day, which is Project Convergence. Very exciting. You're just out there in Fort Irwin. Could you talk a little bit about what you saw, and then maybe more broadly, how that fits into what you're seeing for the Army of the future?
Sure. Yeah, there was two pieces that we had for Project Convergence. I think you were out for the first piece and really working with our joint partners at Pendleton, really proud of, there was a lot of first in that. Where I just left, I was just the last couple of days out at the National Training Center and really focused on Army formations. And it was amazing what I saw out there. I actually wish you could have come and joined us for this piece. So, we had a light infantry company that basically took down a urban environment, went into an urban environment with robots. So all the things that you saw, dog robots, SMETs, other, with weapon systems. So making contact with robots, using robots to sense the environment and understand what's happening on the ground, and having UAS that's up at every level that could see what's happening, and then that was all tied together by a very simple command and control network that was easy to use and intuitive. So it was a really neat to see all that. Proud of what AFC's done to pull all that together.
And a lot of those points, uses of drones, a simplified network, that sort of pulls into the broader push that you've done for the Army. There's been a lot of announcements just in the last 6 months even.
Mm-hmm.
Could you talk about how that fits into your general vision for the Army and how that sort of ties into the convergence story?
Yeah, well, I think it starts with, we've all seen how the battlefield is changing. We know that you can't be having these big C2 nodes that are out there. We know that machines can do a lot of things right now much more effectively and much cheaper, and we're going to have to incorporate them into our formation. So, and technology is moving really fast. And this kind of gave us an opportunity to see just how we could do that. And what it did for me is reinforced what we're looking at as far as transforming in contact, that we actually are going to take a unit, put these systems inside the units, and then let them operate it. So we're going to get our best innovation from our soldiers working with these developers, and that's what I saw out at National Training Center.
And if I could recall correctly, there were 2 platoons that were sort of tasked with using the robots for this experiment. What did you hear from them? What complaints did they have? What positive sides did they note?
Yeah, well, most of the complaints were, how can I have this? I want this right now. I have this capability, and I want to have it inside my formation, and we want to work to get them that. Everywhere I went, I asked the question, how long did it take you to learn to operate this system? That's the big thing. And we do have systems right now where you got to send somebody off for 2 or 3 weeks to learn how to operate it. And one of the UAS, it was a Ghost as an example. It's modular, you can adjust it, and was talking to an infantry squad leader, and he said he was able to master that system in 1 day. I was talking to a platoon leader that had the C2 system that was on a tablet, and he said he'd been playing around. He learned how to operate it by playing around with it for a couple of hours, very similar to when you would get an iPad. So that's, I think, what we're looking at putting inside of our formation. We want to lighten the load. We want to have less complex formations, more intuitive, lower signature. And we saw all of that out at the National Training Center this last week.
And moving forward, I'm sure there's many decisions to be made, but do you see a reality where there is, for instance, a robotics platoon in every brigade combat team? What is the future for the force organization?
Well, I think we're going to see robotics inside the formation, on the ground and in the air, and it's going to be across different warfighting functions as well. We had the Steed that was out there that came in. It was a robotic that came in and helped evacuate casualties. We had UAS that could help at the casualty, collection point. So I think what we're going to have it's going to be infused into the formation. This is part of what we want to do. We have selected some brigades to transform in contact, to actually give them this technology and let them inform us how we need to be organized to do it. So it won't be like what we had with the Shadow Platoon, where we had all 28 that's up at brigade. We need to figure out what needs to happen at each level, and that's what we'll continue to experiment with.
And the other large part of Project Convergence is obviously getting targeting times faster and faster, making that kill chain work more effectively. Are we seeing improvements in that regard?
Well, I think what we saw at Pendleton, where we went from minutes to seconds in very complex environments. So any sensor to every shooter, and we had our joint partners that were out there with us. We had some of our allies that were out there with us. So I think we're improving. I think we had 31st for that was out at Project Convergence. And again, this is why I'm pressing, and all of our leaders is getting the C2, getting the command and control, and simplifying that, and making sure that we're focused on data. And if we're focused on data and we have the simple tech that can allow us to do that, then we're going to be able to move things at the speed we need to, machine speed.
And you talked a little bit about the transforming in contact principle. Some units are already doing some version of this. 2nd Cavalry Regiment.
They're doing great.
Europe.
Yep.
Could you tell us a little bit about what they've been doing and maybe some anecdotes about technology they've been able to
Sure. So what 2CR, Rob McChrystal, and that whole team out there, and I saw them last fall. I'm really proud of what they're doing. They're taking the tech that we have right now, and as an example on command and control, we're doing C2 fix. We're not going to be hauling around big, antennas and all the other stuff that we have, server stacks. So they had commercial off-the-shelf transport. They're using very simple systems, and they were able to operate dispersed command and control, but still be digitally connected. They're doing that. They're looking at the same question you asked earlier about how do we organize around unmanned systems and at what level. And so if we use a brigade there, we're taking a brigade out of the 101st. We're taking a brigade that's out in the Pacific. Everybody has slightly different environments. We have very innovative commanders that are out there, and I think we're piecing all that together, and that will inform how we move forward.
And obviously, like you mentioned before, a lot of soldiers are saying we want this faster.
Sure.
And I'm sure there's a lot of young Army majors who will be watching this and saying, when do we get our drones? I know there's not necessarily a specific date or timeline that you can offer right now, but what is success look for you? Is this next year, next 4 years?
Well, we all talk a lot about incremental improvement, and I think that's what we're looking at. So obviously some of the higher end systems may take a little bit longer, to every unit. We're looking for incremental improvement. What we would like to do is get very cheap UAS systems out inside the formation so that people can start learning how to operate with those systems as an example. We're well on our way right now with C2 Fix, which is how we can really reduce the whole architecture in every one of our units. So we have a guard division that's getting ready to go over to the Middle East, that we are going to, transform them while they're there and do brigades. So we do have a sense of urgency. Obviously, we got to get a budget, and that will help us, to kind of move this. But I think everybody is anxious to transform.
Mm-hmm. And which guard unit is that?
That's 34th ID that's getting ready to go out there. Yeah.
Right. And one of the interesting principles I think in this is not necessarily innovation from the top down, but getting things in people's hands so that you can see what things they like, what the things they dislike. Can you talk a little bit about that as a philosophy of innovation? Why give it out to people versus have things more centrally planned?
Well, I think that, you put it out in an environment like at NTC, and it's out in the dirt and the dust, and people are operating it with it, and they have, gloves or you name it, getting in and out of vehicles. I think there's nothing like testing it in the environments that you're going to need to operate it. And this isn't about testing something in a showroom. This is actually getting it out where they're going to use it. And then they're going to use it with all their other kit that they have. And like I said, I don't think you get that anywhere. We can do that. We did that a little bit this week with the experiment where they were actually out there in conditions and operating it. And I think that's where we do our best learning.
And are you comfortable cutting equipment if it doesn't work? I mean, that's the.
I think we have to. You know, our task for the U.S. Army is to put the best Army on the playing field here for the money that we get, and you know we're going to have to make tough decisions. I think we've done that here recently with a couple of the things where we'll look at all of that, moving forward. And then really get ourselves set to make sure that we have the flexibility moving forward that we can continue to adapt at the pace we need to.
And I think the FAR decision, for example, is a good example of a hard choice that is still focused on modernization. Are you able to talk about sort of what went into that the decision and how you went thinking?
Well, I think we've been talking a little bit about what robots and what unmanned systems can do, and I look at what's changed in the world as far as what space can do, as far as seeing, and we talk about that being on the ground. It's a different environment right now. You can be seen and sensed almost anywhere, and so we have the capability to also provide for that and put robotic systems that are out, unmanned systems that can do that. Provide that kind of the information that our formations are going to need. We can do that at echelon, and I think that's going to make a difference, and it's going to be cheaper.
Price is obviously a factor right now, especially with the budget and the continuing resolution. How has that more constrained operating environment affected the decisions that you've had to make?
I don't know if I think that it's our duty to try to, buy the most cost-effective things that we have. I think that that's what we need to be doing is trying to figure out what is, what we can do. Obviously, what's most important is effectiveness on the battlefield. So we'll always look for that first and foremost. And what I just saw out at the National Training Center at Project Convergence is I look at American ingenuity and what they're able to build and what they're able to do. I know that we're so far ahead of really everybody when you watch them feel that, and you've seen some of that coming out there. So cost is certainly a factor. There's no reason to spend more on something when you don't have to, when you can do it for cheaper.
Which raises an interesting question, which is the cost of some of these commercial components, let's say drones, for example, is so low because there's a large commercial market that's international. It's not necessarily based in the U.S. Have you considered any programs to get down the cost of drones that are on the blue UAS list, for example?
Sure, we're looking at adding to that. We just had our UK and Australian partners here, as part of AUKUS, and we're looking at what we can do to work together, working with our allies and partners. And again, I think once we start to show a demand for more of these and people are producing them, the prices will continue to come down for exactly the reason that you're stating. Other people are using them, and if they're modular and we can adjust them, I always give the example of a M4 in the rail, and you can put different sensors and different systems on them, and not only are they cost effective, they're really effective on the battlefield.
To that point, if you can answer, I mean, one could, for instance, have a drone where the CPU is just made in America, the most expensive component, and we're looking for other stuff from other providers. Is that something that you've ever considered?
It's a good question. I haven't really dove into the details. We have a blue list, that we're working with, and that we're working. This is a joint issue that I think that we're looking at with all of our partners. We have really good a kit coming from right here in our country, and those are a lot of the ones that we're working with. So again, I think that industry is going to respond to our needs in this area.
And as I'm sure you're well aware, industry will say something like, "We need a signal from Jeremy."
I would agree with that.
And how does the Army sustain that signal? I mean, is it reforms to the acquisition model? Is it just leadership in certain terms of making sure people feel comfortable making those decisions? How does that work?
Well, again, I mentioned a couple of things we need to do. Instead of looking at something that is specifically one system, and then you're going to buy a system for 25 years that we're looking at and saying, hey, we're going to spend money on UAS, and it's going to be, this amount of money, or unmanned, whatever the unmanned system is. And then we would have the flexibility to buy the best products that are out there. And so, I think there's going to be openings for a lot of people to get into that. And the same thing goes with the net, with what we're doing with some of the aspects in the network.
And the network is famously always been a very challenging issue. Can you talk a little bit about where we're seeing the most progress with that? For instance, you mentioned, I think, the TAC software, the sort of battle command.
Yep. I think you've seen a little bit of this, and our approach is let's take what we have and fix it, and then kind of look at what do we want to look like in the future. I saw a little bit of that out at Project Convergence this last weekend about what we want to look like in the future with very simple tech, a tablet. Get out, you get out of off your tank. Bradley Stryker or rifle company commander could move into a building, hook it up to a very small Proxima, and bring his team around there and talk about things. It reduces number of boxes that you have, the number of people that you have, reduces your signature. So, all of that, I think the technology exists for that, and we just got to figure a good path to move forward to it.
And the NTC and JRTC training centers, they're sort of hives for a lot of this activity. I know you visited a couple of times now. What are the sort of biggest takeaways for you in terms of either technology or even just standard operating procedure, digging trenches, things like that you're taking away from them?
Well, I think, and we're learning this from lessons, there's a lot of things that haven't changed. I still think combined arms maneuver is critical, and we saw that with the platoon that was doing it. They just had robots that were in it. So, it's taking all the lessons that we're doing, and that's really where we can exercise those at our combat training centers. You've been to both of them here in the States, and we're doing this out in the Pacific with JPMRC and then JMRC out in Europe. But we have the ability to train, large formations and do almost anything that we would need to do in simulated combat conditions. And it is a great place. It's a laboratory really for us to learn, and we're maximizing that opportunity.
What of those lessons from that laboratory are sort of stick out in your mind the most when you see what they're working out there in the desert or the pines?
I think it just reinforces a lot of the lessons, that we're learning. I think that it reinforces for me the urgency of what, we need to adjust. We have, you've seen the OP4 that we have out there that is very agile, thinking and putting these units through their paces, and is getting, what we want to do is get the kit into the hands and let our units that are going through there adapt to that and get better. And so I could go down every warfighting function probably and talk to you about the lessons that we're learning out there, but we're taking what we're seeing in the world, and that's what I'm proud of, what our formations are doing, and they're figuring out how to get better every day.
And speaking of looking out at the world, we have a lot of real-life lessons learned from modern warfare in Ukraine, both from what the Russians are doing, exposing their capabilities, as well as just general techniques and practices. What are the big takeaways for you when you look at this immense land warfare that's going on? Yeah,
I would say first and foremost, I've always said since the beginning, is how well American equipment works. You look at everything that we're doing, starting with HIMARS that everybody has heard of, that it's very effective. We're obviously learning the value of human machine integration and the UAS and how the battlefield is changing in that respect. I think with the technology changes, going on the offense is a little bit harder. We're an offensive army, and so we're learning the lessons of how to integrate in those kind of systems that are in. But really, it's all the technology. What we're doing, you can go all the way back to logistics and what we're learning. We need to reduce our footprint. How do will hybridization work for that to, reduce, how often you have to fuel your vehicles. So we're constantly taking lessons, out of that. And I think it's also reinforced just the values or the importance of allies and partners, and it's brought a lot of us together and really exercising together.
To raise a sort of philosophical point, that there is an argument about the changing balance between offense and defense.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel that the offense is an insurmountable challenge now, or because of drones?
No, I don't think. And if you were out with us this week, I think, like I said, we have offensive spirit in the U.S. Army, and we fight a little bit differently. And what we're figuring out is how we can use these systems. I mean, it's one of the challenges with the technology that's out there, and loitering munitions and UAS and everything that's out there. And what you would have seen this week is how you could combine those systems into a formation, have robots make them the first contact, to include clearing obstacles, and then have our great soldiers using those. So I think it's going to make us better.
Mm-hmm. And one small question: there's been a variety of public reports, statements, etc., talking about the effectiveness of EW on
Mm-hmm.
Ukraine. In particular, stories about HIMARS being jammed or Excalibur rounds being jammed, and in general, very challenging EW. Where do you see sort of Army EW going, and are you concerned about reports about some of those American weapons facing that jamming?
No, I'm not concerned. I mean, I think that we have the ability to adapt, and we're doing that. And certainly, it's a complex battlefield. It kind of gets it back to what we've been talking about pretty much this whole morning, is that it's got to be modular, open system architecture. You got to be able to update things with software, and we're doing that. So EW is one of those areas. UAS, all the unmanned systems, countering unmanned systems, and EW, are the three areas that I think we're going to have to move very fast in, and we're very focused in all three of those areas.
Right. So you have the shell of whatever system it is, and then the software provides the updates that allow you to battle.
And you saw the warrant officer that was down at JRTC who was making those kinds of adjustments on the fly.
Absolutely. So to talk a bit about nuts and bolts of sort of Army transformation and modernization, it's not all just drones and UAVs. There's a lot of heavy duty equipment we still have. There was recently the cancellation of the Orca program, where I know we're looking at some other types of rounds. Could you talk a little bit about what we're seeing from that tactical fire study and sort of what the future of Army artillery?
Well, I'm going to take one more step back. I mean, we're in the position that we're in right now in the Army just because of a lot of the systems that we have coming online that were started from a gap study, back with when General Milley was the chief and continued through General McConville. So, we have a lot of integrated air and missile defense systems that are coming on, and you've seen a lot of those systems. Same with long range fires. We're all of those, the Bookers coming in. So we have all of those things that are coming online. Again, I think what we need to look at, we're looking at all these things on fires. I'm getting ready to have an in detail brief here with AFC and the other commanders of kind of how we look at this. It kind of gets back to cost curve again. What can you do for cheaper and can adjust quicker? Do you need a new system, or do you need a new round that can do the same thing that you can adapt quicker? Can loitering munitions, what can they do? So there's or ground-based systems that don't require a big machine to get around. So we know we're going to need artillery. I think that's another big one. It's not going anywhere. We're absolutely going to need it. Same with some of our heavy formations are absolutely going to be required on the battlefield, but we're going to continue to study, and we're going to be willing to make the tough choices when we need to make them.
Right. So the tank is not dead.
The tank is not dead.
Yes, that's there was a lot of discussion right at the beginning of the Ukraine war that we're seeing the end. Speaking of loitering munitions, the Army is doing a lot of really, really interesting work. There's the LASSO program that seeks to equip squads with loitering. There's the launched effects. What types of lessons are you learning from the fieldings that you've already done? I mean, is this going to take a while, and will we need to overcome problems?
No, I don't know. Again, there's systems that are out there right now that are instantly making our formations more effective, and we're, investing in those. And it's, we're going to have to continue to. That's, I think, going to continue to evolve. We're going to continue to figure out where they fit inside of our formation. That's why transforming in contact, some of this continuous transformation is important to us. And we'll continue to evolve, what we need at different echelons and in what quantity.
And the loitering munition in particular is an interesting concept just because of the amount of use of it we've seen in Ukraine. Just on the level of how it's being used and employed, do you think of these types of weapons as a javelin equivalent, or are these a more strategic type of weapon?
Well, I think, again, what we're seeing out of these systems is, loitering times are going up, which means range is increasing. Their ability to knock out, larger, the explosive, net explosive weight, all those things are adjusting. So you're going to see, I think, different systems at different levels, at different echelons that have different ranges. Certainly what we're seeing right now with machines, things are expanding. The brigade, what a brigade we may give to a brigade will require a larger, battle space. So I think that'll change as well.
Are you finding for this relatively new technology that it is accurate and reliable, or are there kinks that need to be worked out?
Well, I think, and again, this is why we experiment, but there's some very good products that are out there that are very accurate and very reliable.
And a key part, just to sort of foot stop on the innovation part of this, is not just handing stuff out, but listening and hearing what that feedback is, which is fundamentally a leadership question. How have you been able to sort of get those lessons back up? It does seem like you're meeting fairly regularly with brigade commanders and being out there.
Well, I think for me, it always helps just to get out and see it for myself. You can get a report or a video. It's different when you're actually on the ground. So I've been to CTCs already 3 times here in the last 2.5 months out, seeing what they're doing, getting feedback directly from the troops that are on the ground and the people that are putting it together, the developers, really the testers, everybody that's out there. So our soldiers are really innovative. They will figure out how to make things work. They're also very straightforward when something doesn't work, and they will, not shy away from telling you, really how things work.
Absolutely. And
for language I won't use in here, but they're very clear when something doesn't work and what they want it to do to work. We saw actually out at Project Convergence, somebody was saying, hey, I want to add, one type of thing, I think it was a text box or something. And he said he made that, that correction was made, overnight. So I think that's where we got to get to. We got to have people on the ground with them getting their feedback.
And given you've heard all the soldier feedback, what is the biggest technological complaints? What needs to be fixed first that you hear from folks?
I think what people want are the same things that we want all the time. They want something that they know is going to work and is very reliable. You don't have to carry it around in a semi truck. That it's easy to cart around. It's easy to learn how to use. It's intuitive, and then it provides them increase. People never mind bringing something along that they know is going to make them more lethal. And that's kind of the test that we have. Some systems that may need a little bit more work, which is why we'll continue with the experimentation. But those things that kind of fit into that, what we need to do is infuse those into our formation.
And in terms of new attributes to the formation, there's been a significant investment or proposed significant investment in counter UAS and counter near air threat capabilities.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you see that going in the future? Is this just the first stage of potential rearmament, or is this the final word?
Well, I think this is going to continue to adapt, just like everything else. We're adapting. We've spent a lot of time here talking about how we're going to adapt unmanned systems. Our adversaries are going to adapt those as well, and then we have to be also spinning that fast on counter UAS. We're actually doing that. We're transforming with that right now with CENTCOM. over in the Middle East. So taking capability that's over there, or that we have, a directed energy, MSHORAD is a good example, and putting it in those conditions and seeing what it can do to help. We have other systems that are over there, but it's the fastest way to move things forward. So I think we have to invest in that equally.
And if you're able to say, is that directed MSHORAD performing well?
It's performing well.
Yeah.
And there's obviously things that we're working at. We're looking at, power and, how do we, adjust the system, but it's very promising.
And to push slightly, on the MSHORAD that's been deployed, has it actually taken out targets in the Middle East? Is that something you're able to share?
We are testing it over, as what I'll tell you, over in the Middle East.
That's exciting. General George, it's been a pleasure talking with you. Up next, my colleague Jen Hlad will be talking with General Flynn about how he's preparing the Army for potential conflicts in the Pacific. For Defense One, I'm Sam Scove.